Turning now to our first topic in the spotlight, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has accepted the state intelligence community's findings that Russia was behind the cyber attacks targeting the 2016 U.S. presidential election. This was the first acknowledgement from Trump's transitional team that he acknowledged Russians were responsible for the hacking that led to damaging material being leaked. The material dogged Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton until Election Day. What's behind Trump's attitude shift? Does it signal a change in Trump's previous policy on Russia? Joining me now is Professor Nina Japaridze, a professor at the Department of Politics at George Washington University. She is also the vice president of a global market research and consultancy firm, Ipsos. Professor Japaridze, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So finally, for the first time, the designated chief of staff of the future Trump administration acknowledged that Trump is acknowledging that it is Russian entities that are behind the hacking into the U.S. presidential election system. How do you read into this acknowledgement? Do you think that he finally acknowledged that the Russians are behind his winning the presidential race?
The report that we all now have access to, and let's not forget that it's only a declassified version of it, about 25 pages, does indicate very clearly, unequivocally, that the hacking of our DNC, RNC, release of emails through Guccifer 201, 2.0 or DC leaks and WikiLeaks systems indeed were intentional, and the actions, the hacking actions, were intended to influence the outcome of U.S. 2016 elections. The report does provide evidence and conclusions, but the report does not give us conclusive evidence, or it doesn't even attempt to demonstrate that Russia ended up influencing the outcome. And there is confusion, I believe, amongst many analysts of what the intent of the report was. The intent was to explore evidence, understand the methods, understand the intent, and here we clearly have one conclusion, that Russia intended to meddle in U.S. elections.
But it's not clear at this moment because it only published the assessment by the intelligence community, but it didn't show any concrete, any solid evidence that indeed it was the Russian president, Putin, ordering these hacking, and that it intended to bring Trump into office. I mean, there is no evidence, that we couldn't see anything.
The report, that publicly released report, does not demonstrate the specifics, the evidence. It does mention GRU initiating this process, and GRU does not do anything without President Putin's blessing. And to have released specific sources and data and linking the sources would have jeopardized very vital information. It is not a good idea for U.S. national security interests to demonstrate openly to us, to Russia, how is it that we're learning
but then
that
how do we,
Russia is trying to achieve the goal.
How do we come to the conclusion? How can the public be convinced that indeed it is the Russian government who have ordered the intervention? I mean, at this moment you say this is classified information, then how can people judge? We don't have evidence.
Because this investigation and the report was really a product of the work of CIA, NSA, and FBI analysts. A lot of effort went into this, and it is in no one's interest to mislead American public. And going back to American public attitudes, the findings of this report actually are in line with U.S. public opinion about Russian intentions. Ipsos conducted a poll at the end of October, very end of October, among 2008 adults in America, asking American public to tell us whether they believe or not that Russia is meddling in U.S. elections. And at the time, just a week before U.S. election, public opinion was strongly indicative of the belief that Russia is meddling in U.S. elections, and the intent of this meddling is to influence the outcome.
But at the same time, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
By Republican.
Yeah, at the same time, the public is also informed by the media. I mean, the public is also influenced by the U.S. media, which have for a long time been suspecting, without concrete evidence, that it's the Russians who are meddling in the U.S. presidential race. And actually, we also have somewhat an unofficial poll, which is conducted by CNBC journalist John Howard, which is known to be a Hillary Clinton supporter. He set up a poll on Twitter asking, who do you believe, America and WikiLeaks or U.S. intel officials? And the result showed that 83% supported WikiLeaks, while only 17% stood behind U.S. intelligence officials. I mean, this poll, of course, is not statistically representative, but that paints a picture of the kind of general sentiment. How do you read into this public anger that, you know, people cannot trust the intelligence agency? By the way, the intelligence agency also made very big mistakes in the past, for instance, concerning information about the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq.
Yes. If you had an opportunity to listen to an interview that CIA director recently gave to PBS, Judy Woodruff program, you would have recognized at the time that the director was speaking of lessons learned, significant improvement in the analytics capabilities over the last 10 years. So he did not shy away from the past mistakes at all. And agencies grow, agencies learn. And in this case, if you listen to any of those comments that were given by CIA director or other officials that were interviewed about this affair, you will see that everyone speaks of, with single voice, no doubt that Russia officials intentionally interfered with, attempted to interfere and influence public opinion. The fact that WikiLeaks was the source and the American public trusts this source, you know, this is actually shows how witty Russia's officials are today by releasing these illegally obtained emails to WikiLeaks to influence public opinion. They know that public opinion.
We have to leave it there, Professor.
It was really brilliant.
Yeah, Professor Japaridze, I have to leave it there. Thank you very much. I do like to add that the founder of WikiLeaks, Assange, has personally denied that it was the Russian government who gave him these information. But we have to leave it there. I would love to discuss with you in the future in details. Thank you for joining us. That was Professor Japaridze from George Washington University. We'll take a short break and we'll be right back to talk to a Russian expert on the same subject. Now, just moments ago, the Kremlin has just slammed the U.S. intelligence hacking report as baseless and amateurish, saying Moscow is growing tired of denying the Russian government's involvement in U.S. election meddling. Joining me now is Pavel Felgenhauer, an independent military analyst from Moscow. Mr. Felgenhauer, thank you very much for joining me. Now, first of all, finally, Kremlin came out to make a comment about this whole saga that has been going on in the U.S. How do you read into the Kremlin's reaction at this moment, that it's tired of the amateurish response from the U.S. intel community?
Well, from the beginning, the Russian officials have been strongly denying any Russian involvement in this hacking. And of course, they also point out that the redacted version of the report does not have any kind of real evidence about Russian involvement, only conclusions. And since the full report will continue to be classified, so this is becoming kind of a factor of faith, who believes in what. At the same time, the Kremlin has said that it's looking forward to working with the coming Trump administration and hopes that the relations between Washington and Moscow could improve.
Yes, however, it is suspicious. I mean, given the kind of cozying up between Trump and Putin, it is difficult to imagine that the Russian government, led by Putin, does not have an interest in Trump winning the White House.
Again, officially, Putin has been saying that during the election campaign in the United States that Russia does not have a favorite, that it will be the American people to decide. But on the other side of it, it's also clear that the Russian elite expressed a lot of hope that Trump may win. And actually, after he did win, many were congratulating each other and saying that many officials, many experts in America believe that Clinton will win, but we in Russia believe that Trump would win, and we're happy that he did win. Clinton was seen as a continuation of very bad relations with America, and there is hope that with Trump there could be some kind of detente. At least that's what most of the people believe. And of course, there is also skepticism that Trump will be not allowed by the American establishment to actually solve problems with Russia. And I would say that there are vested interests in Moscow and in Washington that don't want to see a true detente happening. So this is going to be a very much uphill job to try and promote a kind of bromance between Trump and Putin, even if they both want that to happen.
Yeah. How do you react, however, to the earlier announcement by the head of the Trump transition team, Mr. Pribas, saying that Trump has acknowledged that it is Russian entities that are behind the hacking? How do you react to this acknowledgement? Supposedly the first time by the Trump administration?
Well, the Trump administration, as it's forming right now, is going to be a mix of very different people coming from different origins and with different ideas and representing different vested interests. It's going to be very split. There are those who, like Michael Flynn, the national security advisor, who believes that America's main adversary are radical Islamists and that Russia is a potential ally. And there is the Republican establishment, like the upcoming chief of administration, who was the chairman of the Republican National Committee and part of the Republican establishment, who are actually rather anti-Russian. So it's going to be a rather mixed administration, and Trump will be getting signals very different signals from different top officials, and what he will actually decide and how coherent will be the American foreign policy under Trump, that's right now an open question.
Yeah. How do you look at the kind of accusation from the U.S. intelligence community that it was not only the Russian government that ordered the hacking into the U.S. election system, but also they employed a whole range of other tools, including propaganda, including fake news, such as the TV channel RT. How do you look at such massive, let's say, accusation on the part of Russia?
Well, the redacted version that was published, yes, there's a lot of material there about Russia Today and what its propaganda was about. Because, of course, that's an open source and that you can discuss. Apparently, there's other evidence there that's from closed and classified sources that they can't publish. So this kind of, in the redacted version, the body of evidence from about Russia Today is rather big, And it's not convincing at all, because, I mean, what Russia Today says, well, okay, that's maybe is some indication of what some parts of the Russian elite think, but that is not any kind of crime or any kind of subversive activity. That is just a TV channel, and its influence, of course, is rather marginal.
Well, thank you very much, Pavel Felgenhauer, for joining us from Moscow.